Hello, London. I'm Matt Brown, and you're listening to the Matt Brown Podcast. It's the show about all things local and maybe some other stuff too. Time flies, and we've talked about this before. By and large, this term of London City Council is coming to a close as our local government switches gears and the focus shifts to the election ahead. If you're watching this on or after May 1st, the race is on. Candidates are filing their nomination papers, they're throwing their hats in the ring. And as the election begins, we're going to take one last look back at the past 4 years. Today, City Hall watcher Steve Cordes and Devon Peacock are joining the show to provide some commentary and analysis. And I'm going to tell you all about it right after this.
Discover London Bicycle Cafe. It's the perfect time of year to take a break on their spacious patio, featuring craft beer, espresso drinks, snacks, meals, and more. London Bicycle Cafe at the Forks of the Thames. See you soon.
As of May 1st, the election is upon us, and this current City Council is coming closer and closer to the end of its term. For this episode, we're taking one last look back at the past 4 years of this term of council. We're going to take a deep dive into the good, the bad, and the unexpected. Because over the months to come, the topics our panelists speak about today are likely to be the topics that are top of mind for candidates, voters, and pundits alike. With us today are two panelists that have seen their fair share of elections. Steve Cordes is the recently retired Chief Executive Officer of Youth Opportunities Unlimited. And he's also the brand new host of the YouTube video blog called Community Matters. Devon Peacock is a person you're probably familiar with. He's the host of 980 CFPL's The Morning Show. And if you can believe it, he's been talking about politics on and off the air here in London for the past 25 years. And right now, they're here to offer their commentary and analysis. So let's go. Steve, Devon, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thrilled that you're both able to do this today. Let's jump right in. Steve, you've seen a lot of iterations of City Council over the decades. At a high level, looking back over the past 4 years, what are your overall impressions?
You know, it's funny. A lot doesn't stand out. Like I think this council nailed a few topics really well. But kind of like they got 8/10 the job done, and then they kind of didn't finish it off sometimes, I think. So homelessness is one for sure that jumps out for me.
And we'll definitely talk about that today.
We'll get back to that. Yeah.
Okay, how about you, Devon?
It's been an interesting council because it kind of straddles the pandemic a little bit. Started in 2022, right? And with online meetings and online versions moving into more of what we see today, which is still some online for some councillors, but then it's, topics of the day. Homes and homelessness, I think, are two of the big themes that jump out for me. I think it's been successful in some ways, unsuccessful in others. Sometimes, because I watch a lot of the committee and the council meetings, they get bogged down into the minutia a little bit, sometimes too much even at the council level, and sometimes you hear that theme always, good being the enemy of, great, don't let that be the, sometimes I feel like they're trying to find the perfect solution to something that doesn't always necessarily exist. But there have been other times when they've moved quickly, which you don't always see for a municipal.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into that as well. I think that the homelessness crisis is, it exists here. It also exists right across Ontario and across Canada. And for a community to expect their council to solve that problem, I think that bar is a little bit too high. Devon, we're focusing today on the good, the bad, and the unexpected for this past term of council. Let's take a deeper dive into the good. What stands out for you?
So I think in general, the homelessness could be both the good, the bad, and the unexpected.
Fair enough.
But one of the things that does stand out for me is homes, and in terms of just approving a lot of different homes and starts. They can't build them, of course, obviously, but they've been very proactive in terms of trying to approve new homes. I get a lot of people who I hear all the time from about all the cranes they see in the city. They like seeing all the cranes. But just when you think about homes, it's approving. It's some of the office to residential that they've tried to do, which has limited, a ceiling in terms of how successful it can be, because there's not every building can be turned in to a residential from an office. But then also I think of the renovation bylaw, which is one example where they moved pretty quickly to get something in, knowing it wasn't going to be perfect at the time, but you get something on the books and then you can massage it later. And so the renovation bylaw was one that came along in midterm that they responded to pretty quickly.
Yeah, okay. And how about you, Steve?
I'd say that, again, I'm going to jump in on the housing piece, the homelessness piece, because the city developed, with the hub model, developed something that was emulated by the province and now was the basis of the hard hubs. And so London carved something out under this council's leadership that was pretty unique. Now, again, that could also be on the unexpected and also maybe in some ways a bit of a failure. But I give a big win to the attention they gave to it, a big win to the resources they put behind it, and a big win to creating something that suited the London model.
Okay. And like I said earlier, we're not going to solve the housing crisis as one single municipality, but I think you've highlighted some of the successes. Certainly, I believe the Sifton property at the corner of Richmond and Dufferin, that's a large project. There's another one or two coming along Richmond as well, and all of the other things that we've talked about. No matter what level of government, hindsight is 2020. Can you think of decisions that have been made that came across maybe a bit off course or missing the mark, Steve?
One that jumps out at me, it's not a big decision all by itself, but it kind of speaks to kind of having a vision and then stepping back from it. It was a budgetary issue, which is why they stepped back, and that was the issue around addressing the traffic congestion on Warncliffe Road. So much work went into developing a plan for that, dealing with the rail underpass area there. It's such a bottleneck. London has significant, for the size of the city, significant traffic issues, right? Which I think we can address through a number of ways. One of it is the road infrastructure. But budget got out of hand and they backed off from it, even though they had acquired properties, even though they had kind of almost appropriated the one property from the woman that used to live on the corner there at Stanley Street. So I'd say that was a bit of a miss because there's no plan now to go forward on that, and it's such a significant bottleneck.
Okay. You know, that I'm sure rings true for Devon, that specific issue, because he's been talking about it on the radio since about 2016. How about you, Devon? Where were the misses?
So Steve talking about the Warncliffe reminds me of there was a time when they were talking about Oxford and Wonderland and extending that, and that brought the ring road back into the discussion in London, which we haven't seen for a long time. It feels like every 5 years we need to talk about a ring road in London, even though it's never going to happen. Yeah. But it's like we'll lose our card as being Londoners. We don't talk about a ring road. In terms of a miss, I mean, one obvious one for me is the raises that councillors gave themselves, and it came around in two ways. There was the giant 33% raise for council. By the end of the next term, every single member of council will be making over $100,000. But also in between, there was a increase for the deputy mayor and for the budget chief. So you can have two different instances where they increased the pay for city council at a time when affordability is key. It's something that everyone is thinking about, talking about, and for as long as I've been covering politics in London, this councillor pay has been a conversation. You know, full-time, part-time. Right. What do we do? And it's not even a case of should we be paying them more. I would be in favor of yes, we should be paying our elected officials more. I thought our MPPs, should be paid more. They finally got a raise, but the timing of it all matters. I'll give them credit for doing it going into an election year, when you might have some angry faces at the doors when you're knocking. But at this time, I question if that was the right move, because you've also had some high taxes, which people might be upset about, but also you have affordability, which everyone is concerned about. And council recognized that because they took a measure in the last budget to reduce the tax below 5% for 2026 and 2027. So they recognized the affordability issue on the one side, but also gave themselves a giant raise that you don't necessarily see reflected for inside workers or outside workers or the average Londoner. Not many people are getting 30% raises. Okay,
we've got about 3 minutes left for this segment. Let's stay right where we are. You talked about a couple of issues, Devon. One is a cumulative, I think it's a 23.5% tax increase. That's a record, at least for this century. I can talk maybe a little bit more about that issue in the second half of the show, and also council raises. And for folks watching from home, the increase is from about $67,500 a councillor would be making right now to, at the start of next term, $96,000, and can go up to about $104,000, $105,000 by the end of the term. The deputy mayor will finish the term over 110, as will the budget chair, and the mayor, whomever these people may be at the end of the election, will be at over $185,000. And so those are real numbers given the context that you speak of. Steve, what do you think of that?
I think, as Devon had said, that's a tough pill to swallow. Again, I support it, but then also too, the conversation becomes how big should council be, right? So I think they should have addressed both of those things at the same time. If you're going to give people an increase and you expect a full-time person in the job, fair enough. It's a big city and it does require that, and pay them what they're worth. But on the other hand, you're still questioning, but do we need as many councillors? That should have been addressed at the same time, I think.
Right, and we've actually had Dr. Martin Horak on this program talking about exactly that. He was part of a panel that made the recommendation for these increases. He says that the parameters of the work that they were given didn't include reducing seats, and I think that that kind of can make sense because the decision makers maybe didn't want to go there. But I think there's an appetite for that maybe moving forward, and maybe we'll hear about that along the election trail. For folks watching from home, a city councillor might represent between 25,000 and 45,000 residents, but when we think about an MPP or an MP, they're well over 100,000. And so the capacity, I think, is there, and we'll see what they come up with. Just before we go to the break, any last words?
I mean, I think in terms of taxes, it's an interesting one that I'm sure is going to be talked a lot about at the doors when councillors are going around. The sidebar to that is a large portion of it was for the police increase, which I think a lot of people in London wanted. Public safety is something that's always, top of mind. And so if I were running for re-election, which I am not, and I'm glad to say I'm not, my answer would be, well, it's public safety, and nothing's free, right? And we'd underfunded it for a while, and it was a necessary expense.
We'll come back to that. We'll touch on it just for a minute after the break, and then we'll dig into a little bit more.
Discover London Bicycle Cafe, home of family cargo and urban cycling. Test ride an e-bike along riverside trails to see how easy moving through our city can really be. London Bicycle Cafe at the Forks of the Thames. See you soon.
Devon, Steve, we were talking about the 23.5% increase that occurred over the past term of council. It is a record for this century. And I guess it could also fall into all three of those categories depending on your perspective as well. I want to spend a little bit more time on, Devon, you mentioned that probably half of that increase roughly would represent the police budget increase.
Yeah, the police budget is something that I know that's also a record, $672 million over 4 years. And the police had historically been underfunded, they would argue. I don't think we're going to see that big of a request from them again the next time around. But some of the things the police are doing are quite interesting. And so the degree to which the police budget is taken up, the overall budget won't be there the next time. So it's just going to be for councillors going to the doors, it'll be interesting to say, what are your priorities? What do you want? Because the budget is always top of mind for Londoners.
Yeah, for sure. Steve?
Yeah, that percentage was a huge percentage. And I think while everybody agrees we all want a safe city and so on, that's going to be still a sales job for people. Because still, whether you support it or not, if you're struggling with paying your rent, keeping up to your mortgage and other fixed costs in your own household, there'll be a yeah, but I'm having trouble paying my rents, I'm getting by on less than I need, why couldn't they? And each councillor, each candidate better be ready for good answers there because they justified the expense. And I think it was a good one to justify, but they still got to sell it.
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean. And again, for context, if you were paying $4,000 in taxes back in 2023, then next year you'll be paying just under $5,000. It's about a $1,000 increase. Okay, unexpected. Let's go there next. Steve.
Unexpected, I'll toss a different topic out there, and that is bus rapid transit. That's been many councils that have kind of moved.
This would be the third.
The third council, there you go. But this is the one that's starting to wear what actually is in place, right? Because now we're starting to see the system come online. We're seeing the traffic with the downtown loop is it finished now or is it still?
It'll be up and running in 2027.
Okay. So King Street has been done, parts of it are done. And so I think that unexpected is that we haven't seen a vision for how this is going to increase usership of London Transit. London Transit continues to report declining ridership. Any of us that goes around our city would see a lot of empty buses going by us. And so we're increasing bus rapid transit, but what's the part of the story that says, okay, what's that going to do to ridership?
Sure, and we actually had Councillor Schuyler Frank on this show just a little while ago. She's also the chair of LTC right now. And what we talked about was that some people are commenting that this bus of rapid transit, it's not really what it was cracked up to be. And she indicated that it's actually not up and running, but it will be next year. She also said that they put the paint lines down on the road. Everyone's seen the red paint along the road to get us used to it as drivers and as pedestrians when we see a bus coming the wrong way on King Street, for example. How about you, Devon? Unexpected?
Well, to build off a little bit of what Steve is, it's almost rapid transit part trois, I guess, almost, if you want to do it. But it's the takeover of the London Transit Commission board and what that means for London Transit moving forward, because that does impact rapid transit. It impacts transit in general. I'm from Toronto originally, and that transit system is just so interconnected, where the idea is, ideally for rapid transit, you can take a traditional bus, get onto the rapid transit, and it helps you get where you're going, is that interconnectivity there. And we saw some of the frustrations on council that came up over this past couple of years that's still going to play out next year. So this is one of those topics where it's a bit unexpected, I think, but also leads into what could be a pretty big issue at the doors for people in terms of what do you want to do with transit? Do you want to bring it in-house? There could be an expense to that. Do you want to leave it out of house? How do you maintain control of something when rapid transit is so central to what London City Hall wants to do?
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So we've covered the good and the bad, unexpected as well. A 4-year term is a long time, and a voter's memory can be pretty short. Way back in 2010, when I ran for council, the Ward 7 seat, Londoners had a general feel for council being out of touch and looking for change. And they asked me what my plans were as a candidate. And all I had to say was, I'll tell you what I'm not going to focus on. I'm not going to focus on carburetors or backyard chickens. And that was sometimes enough. When we look at this campaign, are we seeing any themes develop? Are we seeing any messaging that we think that voters are going to be really interested in hearing? Devon?
I think some of the themes are almost a continuation from some of what we've even talked about. It's going to be affordability, which could go into taxes and how people are impacted that way, and it's also homelessness. Homelessness. One of the questions I've had for City Council throughout the past couple of years is, how do you show success if there is success? Because the homelessness issue is so huge that you can have people who go through the system, find stable housing, but there's someone else to take their place. And so for the average person on the street who's walking by, they'll see someone who's homeless, and they don't remember faces, but they see it's there. And so it's an issue in London, Guelph, Windsor, Toronto, everywhere. It's so huge that I don't know how you show progress even when there is, and I think there has been progress on the homelessness issue. So it's homelessness and it's affordability, it's taxes, it's those two. It's kind of melded into one.
Steve?
I think homelessness for sure. I'll echo that, and that is that Londoners want to know. Okay. How is all this money making a difference? How is this really reducing? I see it in my neighborhood. I see it where I go to work, and so on and so on. So tell me what you're going to do. So there's part of that, and part of it is council set itself up a little bit when they even enabled conversations around 10 to 15 hubs and so on, and remember the concerns around which neighborhoods would they be in, and the NIMBYism that came with that, and certain neighborhoods rallying against that. So while probably every Londoner pretty well would say, please reduce homelessness, tackle that one, but how do you do it and keep it out of my neighborhood, keep it out of this neighborhood, and so on. And I think council, we talk about them on this issue like they're one voice, but they're not. There are a whole bunch of individuals all expressing their own preferences out in the community. So if you're the average Londoner listening to all this, you're listening to maybe your ward councillor, and that ward councillor's opinion and voice might be very different than what council has approved. And I think that's on the shoulders of the mayor to kind of rein that in. and try to get council in more unison on this issue. It's a huge issue, and if we're going to see progress on it and feel that we're seeing progress on that, council has to speak more with one voice.
Yeah, fair enough. And Devon, to your point about people are being housed probably every single day, and there are more people becoming unhoused. And so although there is, in some ways, you can measure progress being made for the individual, and I'm sure that it's an incredible day for that person to move from the street to housing, the problem is real. We've got about 2.5 minutes left in this. Time flies when you're having fun, and we're definitely doing that. I just wanted to give a little bit of time to each of you. You've already talked about what you think the priority is going to be at the door, but just to share some final thoughts. You've watched a lot of campaigns for the next 6 months. Hopefully people will be talking about this, and hopefully we see that voter turnout increase from the 24.5% historic low. But yeah, let's just give a minute to each of you, and we'll start with you, Steve.
I think there's so much coming at people these days, isn't there, on their social media and the news and so on, and the pace of the world, we talk about it, but it's just so fast and just spins so quickly. And that probably speaks to why we get less voter turnout in elections. So I think each councillor needs to be, encouraging Londoner to vote, period. No matter who they vote for, vote. Get engaged. Be prepared to talk about taxes and be prepared to justify the decisions that have been made, because Londoners expect accountability for how their 24% of increased taxes have played out in this council. They want accountability for that, and they're probably feeling quite frustrated, many of them. So they're looking at a councillor that got a big raise. So what are you going to do differently than you would have done last time you knocked on my door 4 years ago? What can I expect out of you that's different than what I could have expected 4 years ago? And councillors, I think, need to step up and need to be bold in a vision for the city around homelessness, around transit, around some of the issues that we've got on the go.
Devon, the last minute is yours.
What I would say is, what I'm interested in is, you mentioned voter turnout. I'm interested in candidate turnout. The last time around, we didn't have a lot of candidates run compared to previous years. It's hard to have Londoners care about an election. We don't see as many people running for public office. So for me, I'm curious how many people run for office, and does that have an impact on people coming out? Traditionally, for voter turnout, municipal, we don't see as many. That's just the way it is. But I would also challenge Londoners that this is where you see the most direct impact to your lives. And while it's important for media, for politicians, and everyone to be involved, you have to get involved as well. The wards have changed a little bit, have moved, and so people need to take some responsibility to know who is going to be their elected representative. We have a couple of months here, and so take the time wisely to see who is going to be representing you, because it matters.
And I can't think of a better place to leave it than right there. Steve, Devon, thanks again for coming on. I can't wait to have you back on as this election unfolds.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
And that's the show. As always, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you know a little bit more about the issues that this term of council was focused on and dealing with than you did before downloading this episode. Maybe you know a bit more about how this election might unfold over the next 6 months or so, too. Thanks to Steve and Devon for joining us today, and thank you for listening. Like I always say, this show is for you. In fact, we couldn't do it without you. So please keep in touch. You can write the Matt Brown Podcast at gmail.com. Tell us what you think. Maybe tell us about what you want us to cover in a future episode, or pitch a show that you'd like to be a part of. A big thank you to everyone who's already doing that too. And that's that. I'm Matt Brown, and this is the Matt Brown Podcast. It's the show about all things local and maybe some other stuff too. As always, thanks for listening. Bye for now, and talk to you again soon. London.